Hi, everybody, and welcome to Ask the Cyber Pro. As you can see, we're doing a little things differently this week. Ask the Cyber Pro brought to you by Beryllium InfoSec Collaborative. Yep, we've structured things a little bit differently because we're going to do things a little bit different this month with Ask the Cyber Pro. What we're going to do is we're going to try to get different perspectives on 3 different aspects of information security. We're going to get the viewpoint on those aspects from both an adult and from a child's perspective. And then we're going to get input from our Cyber Pro. And for that, we're once again joined by Misha Smith, Director of Training and Development for Interpro IQ. You may recall that Misha was our guest on an earlier episode of Ask the Cyber Pro. It's nice to have you back.
Nice to be here, Tim. Thanks for having me back.
Very excited to have you back again. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to ask a question or talk about a subject. And we are going to get input from each of our adult and our child, and then Misha's going to offer her perspective on their process, kind of how they're doing it. As you're watching, following along, if you have any questions, you can submit them. If we have any time at the end, we'll try to get to them, or else we'll try to answer them as we can later. But as it is, we're going to get launched with Ask the Cyber Pro. Are you ready? No, I should ask off the top. Is this a competition?
This is not a competition. So maybe someday. Olivia's been, hounding me, my kid. And I know these guys would be interested in having a little head-to-head versus situation. But not today. Today, this is about having different perspectives. This is about talking between a student, someone who grew up with technology, literally from the crib, to, a millennial Gen X who, at some point in their life added that technology. And then Tim and I are between adding our perspectives as well. So not a competition, just here to talk about different perspectives and from 2 very different aspects.
So no wagering is where we should
no
go with
wagering,
that whole thing.
no bids,
okay.
Yeah, nothing like no bets. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to look at the 3 different aspects. And those 3 different aspects are apps/social media, social engineering, and then smart home/smart everything, because that's the direction we're heading. All right. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do it. Peter and Natasha, thank you for joining us today. Number 1, apps, social media. The question is, when looking at apps, what concerns or red flags do you have when it comes to apps? Now, Natasha, I'm wondering, can you just go out and add apps to your phone, or do your parents put any safeguards on that?
No, I can't download any apps unless I ask my parents, and they will look it up and see if there are any risks or stuff like that could possibly get my information.
So have they said no on some things you've approached them with in the past?
Yes, social media like Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. I can't get those things yet.
And are you okay with that? Some days?
Yeah.
We'll talk. All right. So Natasha's answer is she doesn't get to just do things. She needs to go check with the parents first. Good policy?
I think it's a great policy. It seems like, from what I'm gauging, Natasha's parents are obviously somewhat cyber savvy. They're able to give a good perspective. I would say, for any student to ask their parents is the right move. But certainly when you have a parent who, is making that decision in a cyber savvy way, they're taking the time to say, okay, if my kid is going to, download this app, let's see, what are they going to do on that app? Is there the means to communicate with other people? Is there that potential that a stranger is going to be messaging my child?
Intentional and unintentional.
Exactly. Yep. So, is there a messaging service involved? Who's going to be accessing that information that she's going to be giving to that application? So those are definitely the right steps. I think that's great that she's got parents who are saying, hey, here's our policy as a family, and she's following that. So that's great.
So Peter, same question. You're out there and you're looking at an app. Is there anything you're looking at that may pose red flags? Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I would like to have my parents to bounce it off of, but in this case, not a lot of help.
No, absolutely. And what's really interesting is that I'm from a generation where I grew up without internet, and just in my lifetime we've transitioned to the phase of more and more things becoming paperless. School books, work schedule. In order for me to request time off work, I have to use an app. To access my school information, I have to use an app. To look at my medical records, I have to use an app. And I'm lucky where my phone's operating system, gives me a little heads up to say this app is requesting to use permission for the camera, for the microphone, for example. I'm generally pretty trusting, though. I would like to think that the apps that I do use, I even with these warning informations, I wouldn't think that, they would have any harmful intentions. But, it's possible. And again, unfortunately, we need this in our lives today.
Do you have any sort of like process that you go through if it's just an optional app? Are you like every other guy and you're playing some sort of game out there on your phone?
Oh, yes. I have way too many games. I mean, the app store that I use to download the apps, I do generally tend to skim through the information. If an app is, 2 stars, then I try and avoid it. But sometimes it's impulse. The game looks just too good to be true, so I still try it. And I understand that there are risks associated, but again, I'm kind of trusting, and I hope that they wouldn't have any harmful intent.
And Misha, I kind of threw all guys under the bus there intentionally because it seems like we're just hardwired for games and
Sure.
not always thinking through the process fully.
Sure. Well, it's interesting because, Natasha's process is ask my parents, yes or no. And it sounds like from Peter's perspective, he kind of has his own process, which seems to be, I look at the reviews, which is interesting. So your peers are kind of, giving you the yes or no. Is this a good app? Is this not a good app? How many of those people are weighing in, based on the quality of the game versus the security of the game? Who knows? But again, it's the convenience versus security. It's the convenience, the fun of having that game that you want, but also being conscious of the security risks behind that. What information are they collecting? Are you forced to consent? Why does Tetris need your location? That kind of thing. So asking those questions, and not only what I hate to, sorry, Tetris, but not only what the game is using, but what about third parties? So it's not only that you're giving consent to that game, but you might be giving consent to a lot more people. And those might be the people where you're saying, hey, okay, I get what Tetris is doing with my information, but what are you doing with my information and why?
And therein lies the risk, because as we've seen time and time again, is everybody's sophisticated now enough to know what is the audience they're going after, what are they interested in. They use that as a lead to collect the information, then what's happening with that information. Is that fair?
Yes, very fair. Yep, marketing. I mean, there are absolutely just cause reasons. It's convenience. It's for us, to have targeted marketing to say, if I never buy Cheetos, then I probably don't need or want to see a Cheetos marketing advertisement, but you throw me some retail shoes and I'm going to want to see that ad, so those kind of things that, there is value to that. And that's targeted marketing. It helps us live more, convenient, targeted lives. But with that, again, security.
That whole question of targeted marketing brings us into our second question, and we're getting into now social engineering. So we're shifting now to when information is taken, not voluntarily shared. Data, by many people now said to be more valuable than oil. Now, I'm not sure what that means to you, but you do understand phishing and scams. You've heard those. Yep. Okay. So the digital age has made all of us easier targets. Text messages, social media apps, emails, even phone call scams, still popular and unfortunately effective. What are your thoughts on protecting yourself from those dangers? So again, we're getting into, you have a phone, and I would assume that certain rules came along with the phone and what the phone has options to do. So did your parents set down any sort of rules of what you can and what you cannot do? Or have you learned anything along the way, sort of maybe what not to do based on experience?
Well, I don't click on anything. If something pops up and says, hey, Natasha, this would make you laugh, I don't click on it.
How do you not? Because I do. Help me.
Just gotta try and ignore it.
Okay, so
whatever app you're in.
if something pops up and it looks good, you still can hold off. Then what's your next step? What do you do next?
Well,
You check with your mom, your dad,
Yeah.
you ask friends.
Well, let's say my friends text me something
Okay.
like, hey, you might really like this app. I do.
Okay.
I just make sure you confirm that it's them. Say, hey, is this really you? Or give me a quick call whenever you get the chance.
So
And
you can
then-
question whether it's actually your friend.
Mhm.
I'm learning so much here. I just take so much for granted. So you check first, is this really your friend?
Mhm.
And then 2, you get that information and run it past your parents?
Yeah.
Are you available for adoption? Because I might want to adopt you. No, is that hitting it out of the park?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that she's got that, again, a process in place, which this is what we would tell every business, let alone resident. So it's amazing that she's got this process down, and follows that consistently. There is no, they call it fishing for a reason. We're baiting people into this. So, you get that, hey, check out this awesome video, or it reminded me of you, and Natasha's thinking, who is this? An adult might think, well, let me click on that link because inherently we feel bad because we don't know who it is. We're like, like I should know who this is. I didn't save their phone number in my contacts. We click on the video to say, okay, well, maybe it'll give me some context into who this actually is. We're trying to solve these problems on our own, and we don't have to. So, like to Natasha's point, I'll reach out and say, hey, okay, just give me a call whenever you get a sec, friend or whoever you are. Talk to parents, or confirm in another way. Perhaps they're, impersonating or spearfishing a specific friend of hers or a teacher. That would definitely be, don't, necessarily respond to them assuming it's them. It might not be. So actually going about a different method when their real phone number, their real email, how to get, in touch with them and contact with them. That's going to be how you're going to truly confirm their identity.
Peter, I promise you the next time I'm going to ask you the question first. Because obviously she's like the model citizen. I'm not trying to
Yes.
point you out to be like the bad guy or anything like that. But again, the question is, as we get into the whole aspect of social engineering, we become bigger targets. Text messaging, social media, all the rest of it. And as Natasha pointed out, sometimes you'll get something that has your name on it and you think you know who it's coming from.
Yes.
Do you have some way to stop yourself from taking that automatic action, or have you been burned by taking the automatic action?
It's interesting, when I even think about phishing, I still kind of think of my wealthy African prince who left me $1 million. And as convincing as that email seems to be, by now we know that it's hoax. What's really scary in today's day and age is like you said, there are so many emails and text messages, communication that you get that you just don't know the source of. It seems so legitimate. Emails from your internet provider, marketing companies, and it looks like it's the real thing. For example, I recently just bought a new house and we had to have some roofing work done. And, I was Googling information, roofing, housing information. And all of a sudden I'm getting emails from companies saying, hey, just for a small fee, send us $50 and we'll give you a price quote. It looks legitimate, but chances are it's not.
And you never asked for it, but
No.
just because you had done the search,
Absolutely.
they had you.
Absolutely. Cookies, free cookies.
Free
Yes.
cookies. That's a good one.
Unavoidable.
Yeah. It's definitely, it's out there, and the best thing we can do is just be diligent and recognize that it's out there. Just have a healthy dose of skepticism, I always say. If we understand that the threats are out there, we accept that this is the world we live in. And to Tim's point too, the Nigerian prince, as Peter mentioned, they wouldn't still be doing it if it wasn't still working. It might just be working on our grandmothers nowadays, but it's still working, which is to say that most people are still not educated like Natasha is, and at such a young age.
And you do training, but my guess is as we become more educated,
Yeah.
the attempts just become more sophisticated.
Absolutely. That it's, you pluck one weed and 3 grow in its place when it comes to cyber threats. As we evolve, so do hackers, so do the threats, so does the threat landscape. So we just have to be consistent and continue to adapt and evolve because cyber criminals are.
All right, the third and final area we're going to talk about, smart home, smart everything. Technology continues to advance. Everything seems to be connected now, not just at home, but at work, public places, schools, etc. Peter, do you take any measures to keep your devices and information private?
I do have several passwords on all my accounts, so I would like to think that keeps me safe. Interestingly, again, I'm from a time before mobile internet where your only access to internet was Wi-Fi. So I'm just in this habit of whenever I'm in a public place, I will straight away connect to their public Wi-Fi network. It's free internet.
It's almost like, how can you not do that at the airport? I'm thinking, all these people, what are the odds they're going to get me? But still, it's one of the prime places.
Right.
So I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, it's fine, carry on.
Yeah. No. So do you do anything other than, do you set anything up to try to safeguard yourself?
And the other thing as well is, I have many smart home devices, and I realize that the only way to be safe is to manually switch them off one by one. but it's just the inconvenience of it. I have to go into phone settings, go into the app and shut everything down and then turn everything back on, and it's just inconvenient. And again, I'm a pretty trusting person. I would like to think, the companies that are used for smart home devices, they say they have pretty good security, and I tend to trust them.
Good plan or not so much?
I would say good plan, not so good plan, but I would say that's the majority of people. That's the reality. I think Peter's definitely representing the convenient side of this conversation, is the realist that, the part of this is just the way that the world is today. Adults are much more inclined to go the convenient route when we're busy, getting 100 emails a day. And sometimes, we're just too darn busy and those phishing emails come in. We might not spot it because we're just so busy. And cognitively, we don't have that necessary focus to be questioning every single email that we're, performing a click on to say, is this real? So same goes when we're talking about Wi-Fi or smart devices. And we all think of like the Siris and the Google, devices and stuff in our homes and around our workplaces and stuff. But our phones are smart devices. I think we overlook that. It's now like an extension of our body, but really that phone is also a smart device that's always with us. So, just as we, are concerned or should be concerned that, why do we need to have our location services on all the time? We should be thinking the same about our phones as we do these devices that might be listening to us. There's a lot of interesting stuff in the news right now, but residents are a huge target. I don't think that's being exploited enough. But this is a close to
residences
home.
As in homes.
Residents, as in individuals, not just businesses are under attack anymore. People are too. So like locally in Eagan, Minnesota here, which we're all familiar with the town of Eagan, just in the past 9 months of this year alone, there have been, I think, close to $500,000 in fees and charges that people have paid due to scams. Just that single town alone in the past 9 months, it was, I think, collectively like 26 people, $500,000, U.S. Marshal fakes, IRS fakes, all this stuff. So it's just as important from a business standpoint as it is from a resident standpoint to say, hey, these threats are out there, and they're not just going after businesses. So it's big.
All right, young lady. The question was, everything seems to be connected, not just at home, but at work, schools, public places. I'm sure school has policies too on what you can and can't do with your phones, and I'd like to hear your perspective on that. But do you have measures in place to keep your devices and your information safe? And do your parents institute any sort of controls on that?
Well, going back to the Wi-Fi thing, I connect to my school Wi-Fi, my friend's Wi-Fi, and my family Wi-Fi, but otherwise I don't connect to any other Wi-Fi, just in case it's not safe, in case they could get my information, and I don't want everybody knowing everything about me.
That's a great thing to already have in place at this age that'll serve you well going forward. So is that just something you do on your own? Did your parents kind of ingrain that into you?
Yeah.
Did school talk about it?
My school does not talk about it.
Do they? They don't talk about any sort of phone policy at all?
Well,
What's the rule on phones at school?
we have these green, yellow, and red zones. So red zones are bathrooms, locker rooms, etc. And then green zones are you can have your phones, like you can have your phones out. Those ones are the schools, like classrooms. Otherwise, that's kind of it. That's all they really tell us.
So green is good all over the place, like a traffic light. Yellow is
Yeah.
kind of restricted, and red is just no, you can't have it. So you're not putting it into a bag or anything, and you're
No.
away from it. Could you be away from your phone for any length of time and be okay, or do you have to have your phone near you like at all times?
I do have my phone near me, but I will leave it in my locker if I just feel like I don't need it. I'll just leave it in there.
It's good policy, I would think. Because
Yeah.
we haven't even seen it, right? Because this is the generation that's growing up and they will
Right.
never know life without a cell phone,
Right.
as far as we know.
Right, absolutely. And yeah, that's a good point. It's really cool to hear too. I mean, I can imagine, as a school, as an administration, it would be difficult to put measures in place, where parents are saying, well, wait a minute, school, I choose my kids, rules on using the internet, not you. But ultimately, when that child is in the school, it makes sense that a school would have policies around that. And so mind-boggling to me, but also kind of awesome that this is the reality. You know, kids have cell phones. So it makes sense that there are policies in place for cell phone usage, even in middle schools, probably in elementary schools. So that's very cool to see.
And well, thanking both Natasha and Peter for making time out of your days to come in here and take part in this today. A final word just to people who are out there, just as going forward, as far as policies to put in place, general operating procedure.
Sure. Yeah, I would say whether you're a business or an individual, the best thing you can do is something. Whether you have a policy in place with your parents, whether you have a policy in place with yourself, with your peers, it's important to set boundaries and to just always be aware. If you have that level of awareness, you're going to just be in great shape. So if you always recognize, you know what, the threats are out there, I recognize that, and here's what I'm going to do about it. Always address your weighing convenience and security, and is it worth it? Ask yourself, is it worth it? Is connecting to Wi-Fi at the airport, is it necessary? Is it worth it? And is what I'm doing, arbitrary? Maybe I'm just, playing Tetris, or am I checking my online banking accounts while connected to a Wi-Fi network that has no password? So convenience and security, always asking yourself, is it worth it? And recognizing the risks are out there and just making conscious decisions about that.
Did you have any fun?
I did.
Okay, because if you didn't have any fun, I was going to blame it all on Misha.
Then we're just going to redo it.
Did you have any fun, Peter?
Absolutely.
All right, well, we hope you had some fun too. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of Ask the Cyber Pro. Thank you both to Peter and Natasha. Ask the Cyber Pro brought to you by Beryllium InfoSec Collaborative. You can find them at berylliuminfosec.com, as well as on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and you can subscribe to their LinkedIn channel. For information on Interpro IQ, Misha Smith's Hangout, check out their information below, where you can view past episodes of Ask the Cyber Pro, and you can check out them on the YouTube channel or click on the link below for that as well. In the meantime, be good, be safe, practice good information hygiene, and we hope to see you back here next month on Ask the Cyber Pro.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.